Okay, guys, picking back up, lesson 4.1. We quickly did part A right before the end of class yesterday, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, it was rather quick, I realize that. Okay, the idea on A, though, is we were taking the y equals x squared graph and doing what with it? Translating it down 5. So we took that graph that I showed you on the front side of the notes, right at the very bottom, and we took that graph and we moved it down 5. So now let's look at B. Okay, we've got B, C, and D to get this all figured out. So if you're a little hesitant on A, I'll help you get it figured out on B, C, and D. So first of all, we've got to identify what's going on here. It's x minus 4 quantity squared. What are you thinking that transformation is?
4 to the right.
Okay, so it's minus 4 in the parentheses. In the parentheses is going to be left or right, and this is where we say opposite the sign. I think Eli said opposite what you would expect to do. So since it's minus 4, this is going to be a right 4. So I'm just writing this down for the notes that we translate right 4 units. Okay, so let's practice the graph here. As I set up the graph, I'm going to kind of think ahead. First of all, my x-axis can be towards the bottom. I'm not going to have to go below the x-axis, but I am going to have to move right. So I'm making my graph lopsided so I have room to move to the right. Okay. A normal parabola takes us 2 to the left and 2 to the right. And 4 up. A normal parabola, correct? 2 left, 2 right, 4 up, if you recall from yesterday. And I'm going to review that here in a moment when we graph it. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and put it in right there. Well, at some point, though, keep in mind we're also moving 4 right. So if you stopped at 2, you actually need to go 4 more units counted over. So you need to be able to go a total of 6 to the right when you put your tick marks in. Okay, remind me from yesterday. What's the basic parabola look like?
It's like it's 240.
Okay. Are you guys working on getting that stuck in your memory? The vertex is at 0, 0. Notice I'm just doing this in pencil. There's left 1 up 1 and left 2 up 4. So that would be the basic y equals x squared. Since it says x minus 4 quantity squared, we're going to take each of those dots and move them right 4. You have an option. You can move dot by dot, take every dot and count over right 4. Or here's what I like to do. Take your vertex and count it over. And everything is in relative location to there. So my vertex was at 0, 0. Move it over, and it's going to be where?
0, 4.
So my new vertex is at 4, 0. Now, think about it. Basic parabola. No number out front multiplied. What do we do from that vertex?
Up 1 over 1.
Over 1 up 1 and over 2 up 4. That's my recommendation of how I like to do this. If you don't like that, you can do it a different way. That's fine. So from here, I'm going to go over 1 up 1, over 1 up 1, both ways, and over 2 up 4, over 2 up 4. And my last question on this problem Where would I draw in my axis of symmetry?
X equals
X equals 4.
X equals 4. It has to go through that vertex, 4, 0. And so it's going to be that vertical line, X equals 4. That would be your axis of symmetry. Notice my axis of symmetry is still X equals whatever the X value is in that vertex. Okay. Are we having issues with drawing our U's back there? Mine don't always look good either, so it takes practice, let me tell you. Are we good with this? This one. Okay, let's try the next two. Yes.
So when it says X minus 4 squared,
That squared is the original function x squared. Because if you, our basic graph is y equals x squared here. And so when you have a left to right translation, it kind of pushes that squared away from the x. But if you're questioning, okay, is it squaring that 4 and making it 16? No. Right. It doesn't mean anything in the fact of, okay, do I have to square 16 or anything like that? No. You go with the number provided, which is that minus 4. Okay? Yeah, the squared is just because that's what we are actually graphing, is x squared. Okay, let's try C. Identify your translation. I heard a suggestion of up 3.
Yeah.
We got a second. This plus 3 is after the x squared. Notice the squared is on the x this time. The plus 3 is after it. So this is going to be an up 3. So translates up 3 units. If I'm taking an already positive graph and moving it up 3, I can keep my x-axis clear down at the bottom. In a normal situation, you have to be able to count 2 to the right, 2 to the left, and you normally have to be able to count 4 up. But since we're also going to go up 3 on top of that, 4 plus 3 means we're going to have to be able to go up 7. If it helps, do you want to put those original dots in? Or are you okay without them? Okay. If you want to put the original dots in, you can. Or you can just go ahead and go straight there. The original dots, remember, are at 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4. Negative 1, 1, negative 2, 4. The more we do that, is it sticking in your head better? That's my hope. We keep practicing and it will stick there. Now, what do I do with each of those dots?
Go up.
Go up 3. Or, I'm going to move my vertex up 3. That vertex up 3, what can I do?
Up 1, over 2 up.
Yeah. Over 1 up 1, over 2 up 4. And that's from the vertex. Left 1 up 1 from the vertex. Left 2 up 4 from the vertex. Looks something like that. Just realized I didn't zoom that one in. Can you guys see it okay, or should I zoom it in some? Okay, and D. Are you a step ahead of me on D now? You feeling confident yet? Finished? X plus 1 quantity squared. What's happening to this graph?
To the left one.
To the left one. There's the x, and there's the squared over there. The plus 1 is directly on the x, so that's left to right, opposite the sign. So this is a translation, left 1. Okay, get your graph set up. I kept my x-axis low again because I don't have to go negative for any reason. Normal situation, we have to be able to count 2 right, 2 left. If we're moving left 1, I'm going to have to be able to go 3 left. And we have to be able to go 4 up. Where's my vertex going to be?
-1, 0.
Do we agree? She said -1, 0. It would normally be at 0, 0. But we're going to move it over, and it's going to be at -1, 0. And what's that mean about your axis of symmetry?
X equals -1.
Goes right through that middle of that point. X equals -1. And do you know the shape of your parabola? From that vertex, I'm going 1, 1, 2, 4. So over 1, up 1. Over 1, up 1 the other way. Over 2, up 4. Over 2, up 4 the other way. When you have just a basic x squared that is plus or minus a number, this is the easiest way to graph it. There's other ways to graph it, but this is the easiest when you have just the basic x squared. Okay, think of it as a translation. One thing you need to walk out about for 2 knowing this year, y equals x squared. When I say y equals x squared, you know that that is a parabola, as a graph. Okay, that's something that we should be knowing at this point. Okay, do we have everything we need there? Do we have questions on this section? Am I good? Okay, we're going to move on and talk about vertex form. On the front of the notes yesterday, I indicated that vertex form was listed there. And vertex form of a parabola, or of a quadratic, is this form right here, where it's f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Now, vertex form is friendly for graphing because it tells me some things that I can just observe by looking. First of all, it tells me where the vertex is. The vertex is going to be at the ordered pair HK. Now, if you look up here, H is going to be the number in the parentheses. That number in the parentheses will tell me how far my graph moves, left or right. So that's the first part of the vertex. The plus K at the end, a number at the end tells me how far my graph moves, up or down. So that K is the second part of the vertex, because we've moved left or right H, up or down K. Thus, my vertex is HK. If you know the vertex is HK, what's the axis of symmetry then? Well, I've been saying it. It's always x equals the first number in the vertex. If your vertex is listed as HK, then the axis of symmetry is x equals h. It will always be the first number in the vertex. Okay. The vertex of the parabola is either the maximum or the minimum of the graph. Do you understand what that means? Highest point or the lowest point. When is the vertex the maximum?
When it goes in.
Okay.
I don't know.
How about an upside down parabola?
Yeah.
Okay. I get what you mean when it goes in the negative. But when you have an upside down parabola, where is the vertex? It's at the very top. And so it is a maximum. When is the vertex a minimum? Okay, when it's a normal right side up parabola, the vertex is at the bottom, and so that makes it the minimum point that graph will ever go. Okay? Okay, we got a couple of favorites here. We got to talk about domain and range real quick. Now, domain, piece of cake. The domain of a parabola. Remember, domain is your what?
The bottom. No.
How many numbers do it?
Okay, domain versus range. Which is which?
Range is how much the numbers like are on.
Not that type of range. Domain and range. Think X and Y here. Jacob? Okay, so domain are my X values, range is my Y values. Which way do X values go? X values go left or right, yes? The X-axis runs left to right, my X values go left to right. So the domain, think about what's happening with this parabola. As my parabola goes up, what's it doing?
Going out.
It's going wider and wider, yes? Does it ever stop getting wider officially? Not officially, because this parabola goes up indefinitely, right? And so it's indefinitely getting wider. Okay? And so, notice what it says about the domain. The domain is always negative infinity to positive infinity. Those infinity signs are kind of cut off there, but that is what it says. Which means all real numbers are included. So that's another way to put it, is you will often hear it listed as all real numbers. All real numbers, because my parabola keeps getting wider and wider and wider. So the domain is all real numbers, negative infinity and positive infinity. Now, range, we just said is the Y values. The range is how high or low my parabola goes. And we'll look at an example here, but you'll notice it says it's based on the max or min value. So if your parabola starts at 0, 0, then that range is going to be from 0 up, 0 to infinity. Okay, or greater than or equal to 0. If your parabola starts at 0, 0, but goes down, then it's going to be all those numbers less than or equal to 0. I'll show you, I'll talk about that one when we get down there, okay? So, all that stuff I just talked about, we're going to put to use on this example right here. So, I think there's like 5 questions we have to answer. For the equation, y equals 3 times x minus 4 quantity squared minus 2, what are the vertex, axis of symmetry, max or min value, domain, and range? And we're not graphing this to do it. The idea is to look at the equation and be able to figure this out. Okay? So, I'm going to use the form y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So I'm going to write that out so we can kind of pair things up. And then I'm going to put my equation directly below it. So my equation is y equals 3 times x minus 4 squared minus 2. First question it asked for is the vertex. Any thoughts on what the vertex is? What do you think, Cyrus? What was it?
4 negative 2.
She says 4, negative 2. Carter?
-4.
He says negative 4, negative 2.
Oh wait, no. That's wrong.
Carter's now taking back his answer.
It's 4.
Okay. I do agree with Cyrus's. 4, -2 now. Okay, here's the deal, guys. The equation says x minus h, but the vertex is just h. What is that -4? Think about this here. What is that -4 telling the graph to do? That -4 is telling me to go right 4. When you go right 4 on a graph, is that a -4? No, it's a +4. So for the h value, you will always use the opposite sign for the vertex. What's that -2 telling me to do? To go down 2. So if we're being told to go right 4 down 2, does that make sense that my vertex is 4, -2? You can also think of it as HK. Some of you will think HK. Some of you will think, oh, I went right 4 down 2, so that's 4, -2. You pick. What makes you happier there? Okay? What's the next thing we're asked for? Axis of symmetry. Okay, if you get the vertex right, this is a piece of cake. I've already talked about this before we even got to this part of the notes. I've been talking about this since yesterday, how the axis of symmetry always relates to the vertex. Tells me up there in the notes. What do you think?
Axis of symmetry is
X
x equals 4.
equals 4? Because what have I been saying? It's always x equals the first number from the vertex. What's my first number from my vertex? 4. So it's always x equals 4. If you look in the notes up above, it says x equals h. Well, what was my h value? 4. And again, with the h value, you are always using the opposite of that h. So that is a connection there. There will always be x equals that first number from the vertex. Yes?
So like, the maximum and range, will they always like have something like maximum and minimum? Will it?
We're getting there. You're a step ahead of me. Okay, are we good on axis of symmetry? Okay. We want to know a max or min value. First of all, you've got to identify with me, is this parabola going to have a max or a min? It doesn't have both. It has a maximum value or a minimum value. How do I decide if my vertex is going to be a maximum or a minimum? See some wheels turning here.
Is it like a negative x?
What do you mean?
Flip it like upside down.
There is something that would flip it upside down, and that's what I'm trying to figure out if you understand. Maddie? Okay, if the A is negative, it's upside down. What is my A? My A is 3. And so A is positive in this situation. Since A is positive, what's that mean my parabola is going to do? It's going to open right side up, and that means my vertex is at the bottom and makes it a minimum. You follow my chain of logic there. A is 3, A is positive. Positive means my parabola is a normal, everyday, right side up parabola. That means my parabola, when you draw it, the vertex is at the bottom, so the vertex is a minimum. So, to answer the question, the maximum or minimum value, well, first of all, it's going to be a minimum in this case. And then, A minimum value of what? So the question becomes, how low does my parabola go? How low does it go? What are you thinking?
Isn't it just like, wouldn't it just be y?
And what is our y value here? -2. Because think about it, my vertex is 4, -2. So I go right 4, down 2. What's the lowest point we ever go to? -2. So my minimum is -2, which is the k value. So your max or min will always be your k value. It's not coincidence. I'm trying to make the connections for you, so when you go back and do this on your own, you can put it all together. Officially, it asks for the domain. Easiest problem all period if you've been listening to me. What's the domain? Negative infinity, positive infinity, all real numbers. I don't remember, I feel like you do have to answer domain in homework, but I don't remember which form they use it.
That's rough.
So, and maybe they don't put it in homework, but, so you can either say all real numbers, or negative infinity to positive infinity. I'm fine with either or. You just have to be able to manipulate Math Excel and know what they want, right? So you have to know that these are the same. And lastly, range. Domain is how far left and right my x values go. Range is how far up and down my y values go. So I have a minimum here, yes? So what was my minimum value? -2. So I have a minimum value of -2 right here. Where is the rest of my parabola in relation to this minimum value of -2? The rest of the parabola is where? Above it. So how do I say above -2? Greater than or equal to -2. Now, this is a range, so this is in terms of y. So y greater than or equal to -2. And that value of -2, again, was my k value. It was also my minimum value. So think about this. If it was a minimum -2, then my range is greater than or equal to -2. If it had been a max value, then my range would have to be less than or equal to that value. And we'll experience that on the next one, obviously. Although I'm running behind on time. Okay. I took that one slow because there was a lot to do. You got the basics though?
Yeah.
I won't go quite as slow on the next one. I'm going to expect you guys to flip back and forth and be able to understand where we're going here. I'm not flipping back and forth, so you guys are going to have to do the flipping back and forth. Okay, same 5 questions. Vertex, axis of symmetry, minimum or maximum value, domain, and range. I'm going to write down the fact that it's y equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. And my equation is -2 x plus 1 squared plus 4. Okay. Vertex thoughts. What do you got, Abby? -1, 4? Because the vertex is HK, correct? So negative 1, 4. If you prefer, you can also think about, what does this x plus 1 indicate we would do? Move the graph where? Left 1. And what does that plus 4 at the end indicate? Up 4. I'm trying to make the connections here for you. Okay? Are we okay with the vertex one way or the other? Axis of symmetry. Olivia?
-1.
Is it positive one?
Now,
It's not? Okay.
negative 1 is good, but what are you forgetting? Someone said it. X equals negative 1.
Oh, yeah.
I'm being nitpicky. Your negative 1 is good. Okay? Your negative 1 is good. But to give full credit, I need to hear x equals negative 1. And I guess I should officially write this out. This is the axis of symmetry. How did we know negative 1, folks? It's the x value, right? No coincidence. Okay. Maximum or minimum? Eli? Maximum of what? He says 4. I agree. I should probably explain that though. How do we know it's a maximum? Okay. My A value is negative. What does that do to a parabola? It makes it, instead of open up, it makes it open down. And if it opens down, where is my vertex? Vertex is at the top, so it is a max. I'm trying to take you through my train of thinking there, if you haven't quite gotten that one. That's one that some people will struggle with getting. For the negative, means my parabola opens upside down. So that means my vertex is at the top, and that is a max. So how high does that parabola go? Well, my vertex is left 1, up 4. So that highest value is 4. Okay. Domain. Class? All real numbers. Or negative infinity to positive infinity if you prefer. Range. Domain is X. Range is Y. What's my range doing here? What do you think, Kendra?
Y is less than or equal to.
Agree? Disagree? First of all, it has to be Y because it's range. It was a max value, right? So that's saying the highest my parabola ever went was 4. If the highest my parabola goes is 4, where's the rest of my parabola? Below it. And so that's why we have to say less than or equal to 4. Was it easier the second time around? Anything I need to explain better there? Now the key is, can you do it on your own when you get to homework? Okay. My hope is that we can get through one of these. I won't get through both, but hopefully one. We've got one last thing to do, and that is, given a vertex and an ordered pair, being able to write a quadratic equation for the parabola in vertex form. Okay? So first of all, we've already talked about vertex form a couple of times, right? You're becoming very familiar with vertex form and hopefully liking vertex form. A times x minus h squared plus k. In example A, write the equation of the parabola given a vertex of 3, 7 and a point of 9, 4. Vertex of 3, 7. Where did those go in the equation? Eli? H and K, yes. Vertex is HK. So right there, that is the HK. Now, let me remind you what vertex form is. Y equals A times x minus h squared plus k. I wrote y equals, they said f of x equals interchangeable, yes? Y and f of x interchangeable. Don't let that snag you up. Now, you have to be able to fill in 3 things in this formula. We have to be able to fill in h and k. Can we fill in h and k? We're good. We also have to be able to fill in a. Do they give us an a? No. So what we know right now is y equals something. I'm going to put a question mark there. And then we have right now x minus, what's my h value? 3, quantity squared, plus k, which is plus 7. I need an a value. What information have they given us we haven't used yet? A point. A 0.94, yes?
Yeah.
Thoughts on how I can use this 0.94?
Just taking a shot in the dark. Finding a good usage or find like how.
Okay.
Can we solve this like a normal equation and put 9 in for x?
Okay. Yeah. Think 9 and 4. An ordered pair is xy, correct? So what we can do is we can put these in for x and y for the moment and solve for a. Okay? Meaning, okay, y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. That's my vertex form. I keep repeating it, yes? Fill in everything you know, which will be everything except a. So what can I use for y? 4. Equals, a is what we're trying to find, so I'm going to leave it as a. X, what can I use for x? 9. Minus, we already have h as 3. Quantity squared plus k plus 7. PIMDAS, guys. You've got to listen to Aunt Sally on this or you're going to mess it up. 9 minus 3 is 6. So it's, debating which way I want to write this. 9 minus 3 is 6, and then what? 6 squared is 36. And what is that 36 being done? It's multiplying by a. So think of this as 36a plus 7. What you cannot do right there is say 36 plus 7. Common mistake. I'm pointing it out right now, okay? So you cannot say 36 plus 7 because it's 36 times a plus 7. How do we solve this equation? If it's 36a plus 7, you want to subtract 7. You see how we're doing using our algebra skills here? 4 minus 7 is negative 3 equals 36a. How do you solve for a?
Negative 3.
No, divide by 36 because I want to get a by itself. The negative 3 is already by itself. I get that it's on the left, but we're trying to get a by itself. So then, negative 3 divided by 36. Reduce it. Negative 1/12. This is my a value. So, we already had an equation here, yes? Y equals, all I needed was a. negative 1/12 times x minus 3 quantity squared plus 7. That is your final answer. Okay, I am obviously out of time for B. However, have I done some of everything in the notes? Yes. So I will not plan to come back and do B. I can tell you the answer for B if you want it, but I will not plan to do B. You have homework, which is lesson 4.1 in Math Excel, which is due tomorrow. Eli.
X represents a function of X.
Uh-huh.
But yet it's interchangeable with Y.
Right, because it's the output. So when you plug X into something, X is your input, Y is your output. Right. If you are curious,
George?
Y equals negative 1 times X minus 4 squared plus 2 is the answer you would get here. The key is they give you a graph, so you have to find your own points. Lesson 4.1 in Math Excel is what needs finished. And I managed to finish before the bell rang. Barely, but